It's a beautiful moonlit night here in the winter in the boreal forest, and there's some lynx tracks that I'm going to go and trail, and I'd like you to come along. All right, here's the lynx trail in the moonlight. It's quite nice. There's so much moonlight, and you can see it there. And I'm going to turn my headlamp on now. Let's go with that. That's not too bad. There we go. Isn't that cool? So they're not super fresh. These happened a few days ago, it looks like. And I'm still going to follow them because they're pretty awesome. That's a good size. Here's my glove. Yeah, you can see there's my hand. 1, 2, 3, 4 toes. No claws present because they have semi-retractable claws. And yeah, the stride is quite close together. It's not a mountain lion because a mountain lion would be sinking and pushing through the snow quite a bit deeper. And the steps between tracks would be quite a bit longer too. Definitely a lynx. And this is a good size lynx for sure. And off it goes that way. Isn't that cool? So any interesting changes of direction, stops or pauses, or transitions into different forests, I'll stop and film. But for the most part, I am going to cover some ground. So here we're crossing our cross-country ski trails, and there's a nice lynx track, and there's a deer track, and there's our cross-country ski trails. Here we've got a nice snowshoe hare trail. You can see it as it weaves through the forest that way. And as we turn and look this way, here's that snowshoe hare. He's routinely traveling this back and forth right through that little corridor. And that's cool. One of the things I love about trailing animals so much is that the trail takes you to places you'd normally never go. Look underneath this spruce tree here. Underneath the spruce, and there's 2 little deer beds in here. Fairly recent. The warmth of the deer's body has melted the snow right down. There wasn't much snow there to begin with. 2 deer. So I'm guessing, but that would be a doe. And this would probably be a fawn. It's got a smaller body print, but yeah, cool. And lots of snowshoe hare tracks under here too. What a nice little resting place for the deer. We're alongside the creek that runs through our property, and right here is an old beaver bank den. There's an entranceway there when this was full up with water. And what's interesting about it is the den has collapsed in a few places, like here. There's a hole there that goes down quite deep, so the den is underneath the snow here. And here this snowshoe hare has been capitalizing on it. And oh, actually there's squirrel tracks right there too. Too small for snowshoe hare. So there's snowshoe hare tracks right there. And little slide marks where it goes down, and it slides right inside there. Ah, cool. And there's also squirrel tracks heading this way. So this beaver den, this is why beavers are important. Even when they don't live in an area anymore and they've left the area years ago in this case, they modify their landscape enough that they leave dens behind and wetlands and old dams, which becomes habitat and home for other creatures, which is indicative to the importance of beavers and why they're so necessary. And we've got a nice 2x2 trail. So it's 2, and then 2, and then 2, and then 2. But those 2x2 are actually 4x4. There's 4 footprints in there, and this is indicative of the mustelids, the weasel family. And so we are following one of the weasels here. It's almost pine marten size, but we're in the wetlands where it could even be a mink. Cool. I'm going to have to keep following that if I want to really be sure of what size it is and what animal it is. But we're into the pine marten and mink size. Leaning towards mink because we are at a creek. So what's interesting about this is it's quite a transition. That's the creek in front of us, where that ribbon of trees there, right there, that's the creek. It's just a small creek, runs through our properties, and this is all grassland, so it's wide open. And then it rises up on this ridge, and this ridge is just full of snowshoe hare. And our lynx is here. He's come through going that way. But as we go back here, first I'll pause. Out here, very few snowshoe hare tracks. As soon as we get into the cover of the aspen and the willows and the few spruce that are in here, there's snowshoe hare everywhere. They like to stay under cover. And they only cross out here if they absolutely have to, because it puts them at risk. And they can be killed by predators from above and below and on top of the ground. And if we look back in here, here's our lynx. He's going this way. But here a snowshoe hare came around, walked down into here, and then that snowshoe hare decided to nip off a few ends of these little spruce buds. There's a spruce cone. The squirrel likely placed that one there at some point. And there's some reminiscent little bit of needles left behind by that snowshoe hare as he sat right there. And here's our lynx traveling along. And he's heading out that way. There's our lynx. And right here we've got an explosive gait of a deer escaping, running away from something. And there's a front foot, rear foot, and then quite a leap all the way to there. And we have, this is technically a gallop, front foot, rear foot of that deer. And then a big leap again, and then there's lynx track. And then there's the deer hitting again with another big leap and another big leap. Awesome snowshoe hare. Here's a snowshoe hare coming. So here's a trail that a snowshoe hare takes the risk and uses from the creek every so often, from the creek all the way up. So it does travel there fairly often, enough that there's older tracks and fresher tracks. Lynx trail, escaping deer. Isn't tracking in the snow wonderful? Especially fresh snow. What fun. I don't care that it's midnight. And we're just looking at the lynx trails and encountering all the species as we go. I'm not even analyzing the gait or trying to figure out what the lynx is thinking or doing. I mean, currently it's just doing a diagonal walk, but I'm just excited about following it to see where it takes me. It's going to take me on a journey to places that I wouldn't have walked otherwise. And I'm going to encounter a lot of cool things as we follow it. Cool. Why did it go this way? Where is it going? Oh, there's another snowshoe hare trail. Cool. Transitioning over an old beaver dam here. Our lynx there, let's get down low, has gone up and over this hump. And this dip is a well-worn deer trail that we're going to walk down shortly. So the lynx's tracks are going to mingle with some fresh deer tracks here. So there's deer tracks, lynx tracks. And over here, again, as soon as we see brush again, we can assume and confirm that there's snowshoe hare around. And there is. All right. Carrying on. This is so cool. I can take this as far as I want in these conditions. It's so good. We can follow it literally for hours, or until we cross the private property and can't go any further. So the deer chose to go left. The lynx chose to go right. I like to envision the cat seeing all of its muscles moving and its legs moving as it walks, imagining a stealthy cat cruising along this way, making giant footprints. Cool. Yeah, sculpt the animal. Let's go to the side and look at that. I like to sculpt the animal a lot of the time. I'll just zoom out a bit. There we go. So there's a footprint there and a footprint there. The larger footprint is the front foot. The smaller one is the rear foot. Anyways, yeah, so there's his back, probably even higher. Big blobby kind of tail there. Head of this thing's going to be right up here. It's important to sculpt the animal on its tracks, especially if you can find a spot where it stood for a while, hung out for a while, or standing in a spot, or sitting. Stop and sculpt the body shape as best you can and imagine it there. It just helps create more filing cards and images in your mind of the animal that you're following. All right, so I've come to a spot where I have to make a decision. So we've got the lynx I'm following heading that way, and now here's another set of lynx tracks, but I bet it's the same animal. It's probably the same one, and I'm guessing it went and milled around up in here for whatever reason, and then it came back and crossed its tracks and headed that way. So before I mess up this whole little area, sorry, it's going to go darker as I back away, but before I mess up this whole area, I need to make sure that I'm careful how I walk and where I walk so that I don't get all confused. So I'll walk beside the trail, a little bit to one side or a little bit to the other side of the lynx trail, and try and keep track of where I'm going. Every so often I'll stop, lift my head up, look up, and see where I'm at, look back at the trail that I've left behind, and try not to just zigzag all over and mess up this clean slate of tracks, and then suss out whether I have two lynx or it's indeed the same one crossing back. So that's my next approach. And then the other thing is, once I've done that and confirmed that, regrettably, it's getting to private property. If this is the lynx that we want to follow heading that way, he's going to cross into private property right away, which means I'll have to stop. I don't have permission to go over there, at least not at this time. I'd have to contact my neighbor, and I'm not going to do that. It's 11 o'clock at night. But I can also turn around and go backwards on the trail and track backwards, which is just as fun as tracking forward. And it'll still take me to all those cool places. I'd just be walking it in the reverse. So that's what I'm facing now. Anyways, I'm going to move ahead, and I'll just work through this area, and then I'll update you as far as... I think this is the same animal just crossing this way. So we'll figure that out next. Okay, so after 10 minutes of mucking about all through this thick woods here and stuff, way back over there, about 60 meters away, was where I crossed the two trails, and I discovered that was the same lynx, and he went all through this really hard to get through stuff, hunting around in there, and he came out into this little opening, marched his way down through here, and then like that, and then ended up recrossing. So it was the same lynx, but I didn't know until I followed it. Here's a really good snowshoe hare trail that I wanted to show you through the woods. This way. see their little corridor that they live in. It's important to get down low. If you're tracking snowshoe hare, then make sure that as often as you can, right down low to the ground and look at the corridors that, like this one. Let me see if I can shine my light in a different projected way there. Now we can poke it right down, and that's they're traveling. Once you start to see what their trails look like and get away from human-sized trails, which are tall and vertical, 5 to 6 feet high and narrow, that's a human trail, versus a snowshoe hare trail, which is what a cat would take. Short, lots of cover, only about, I don't know, 30 centimeters wide at the most, even less, with overhanging branches. You start exploring these other trails, you got to get down to their level. And unfortunately, that Canada Lynx did cross into private property, and I can't go any further that way. What I'm thinking though is tomorrow in the daylight, I'm going to maybe do some backtracking. For now, I'm going to just come out of this area here. See if I can demonstrate where I'm at here. As we come out into our beautiful little creek. Yeah, geez, look at the snowshoe hare tracks in here. Right, as soon as we get into the cover, you enter into their world. There's just hundreds of them in here. Our property is so littered with snowshoe hare, and that's why the lynx are here. That's why the coyotes are here. Yeah, there we go. Now you get a kind of a view of our little wetlands creek. Beautiful. Thanks for joining me on this little late night track walk. Don't be afraid to get out there in the dark. With a flashlight, you can often see the tracks better than you can in the daytime, especially midday. You can force the shadows this way and that, and you can illustrate the tracks in ways that you can't when you are using a flashlight at night. See, that shows up really well in the daytime. That may not show up so well, and I can change the lighting. There's a little different light. There, washed out. Different light again. Different light again. There's a red light. That washes right out. And there's Moonlight. Very cool. All right. Thanks, Canada Lynx. That was fun.